Hey everyone, it's Rich Bennett. Can you believe it? The show is turning 10 this year. I am so grateful for each and every one of you who've tuned in, shared an episode, or even joined the conversation over the years. You're the reason that this podcast has grown into what it is today. Together, we've shared laughs, tears, and moments that truly matter. So I want to thank you for being part of this journey. Let's make the next 10 years even better.
Coming to you from the Freedom Federal Credit Union Studios, Hartford County Living presents Conversations with Rich Bennett.
Slow pitch or fast pitch?
It's probably the least sexy part of the organizing. It's okay. No. The truth is,
Imagine navigating life after addiction recovery, thinking the hardest part is over, only to find new challenges waiting on the other side. That's exactly what Tanya Gioia faced when her husband got sober just 5 days before Christmas in 2010. Tanya's journey didn't end with sobriety. It was just the beginning. From managing a chaotic life with 2 kids, 2 horses, 400 chickens, and a dog on 20 acres of Colorado land. Yeah, I guess it would be chaotic.
Yeah.
All while rebuilding her family, Tanya found strength in her faith and discovered the power of laughter through the darkest moments. Now a Christian-focused addiction relationship coach, Tanya helps women support loved ones battling addiction with compassion, humor, and practical tools. So join us as Tanya shares how she transformed her own struggles into a mission to guide others toward healing, faith, and renewed hope. How you doing, Tanya?
I'm good, thanks. And it's been a long time since we had 400 chickens. And while we're doing this, the egg prices have just come down, right? We were paying $12 for a dozen eggs or something like that.
You were paying $12 a dozen?
It was about 9, 10, 11. It depends on what you were eating. So my son said,
wow.
Well, we weren't actually paying it because my son said, "You have an egg dealer, don't you?" I'm like, "Yes, I do." So I don't know what California was paying, but here in Colorado, as they were dealing with the bird flu and all that kind of stuff, we had gotten to about $9 a dozen. But I was still paying a local farm because that's how we like to eat our eggs. So we went up a little bit. We went from $4 to $5.
That's the bad. Well, and that's the thing. You got to, support the local farmers, support the local businesses.
Yes.
It makes sense.
Yes.
I mean, the same with meat. If you buy local, yeah, it's going to cost more, but you know what you're getting, first of all.
But it didn't during this whole egg crisis. It didn't cost more. It cost less. And you had to be with an egg dealer at that point already, or you weren't getting in because those hens were only producing so much. So yes, we did have 400 chickens at one point. That was also at the height of the addiction. And it was a very scary time. We were living out on 20 acres and I learned to plow.
What?
I learned to plow the driveway. I had to learn to plow.
Oh, just snow. Okay. I thought you meant the fields.
No, I had to learn to plow the driveway because it wasn't a terrible grade, but we lived maybe a quarter of a mile off the main road and had to learn to plow.
Right.
So one of my best mom superhero stories was as I'm trying to figure out all of this, because we had, and for people who've been through it, when a domestic violence comes through, there's the court takes over your life. One of the party has to leave. My husband gallantly left. To tell you the truth, we were both in this physically together, and he said, "I'll go," which I really respect him for. So I had to learn to plow because I'm out there with 400 chickens, 2 horses. We had 1 dog at the time, 2 kids, and doing that all by myself. I didn't know, Rich, that you couldn't plow up. I didn't know that you couldn't plow up the hill. And let me tell you why. For those of you who are flatlanders and you don't go up the hill with your plow, we are chugging up the hill. It's about twilight. And all of a sudden I had a drift and it goes, woof. over the top. Now I've got my 3 and 5-year-old in the truck with me because I can't leave them.
Oh, while you're plowing.
So everybody's in the plow truck with me, right? Luckily the dog is out somewhere else. So it goes woof over the top. Scares me to death. My heart is just racing. It is pounding. My little one sitting next to me go, wow, that is so cool.
Do it again,
Can
Mom.
we do it again, Mom? That is so cool. And I am just, I'm almost at the point of tears because we're at enough of an angle that I can't really go backwards. The plow's down on the ground.
Right.
I don't want to drag it. But they were so excited that I just gunned it and went the rest of the way and we were fine. So when a family dynamic breaks apart, because we all have our roles in the family. When a family dynamic breaks apart, you learn how to do different things. Some of those things can be really life-giving. They can be really independent forming. In the Bible, they call the woman in Proverbs 31, she's the Eshet Shaval. She's the woman of valor. Right? Which means, I asked some Jewish friends and they said, it's kind of like, you go, girl. You're a woman of valor. You go, girl.
Yeah.
So I'm in there and that's where I learned to praise me. And I know this sounds a little arrogant, but not in an arrogant way, but to say, hey, I'm doing a good job. Yeah. And that's really important for your kids to hear too, that it's okay to say, hey, mommy did a good job with that plowing. Mommy did a great job getting dinner on the table, the 400 chickens fed, the horses taken care of, and the dog inside in a timely manner. So all of that was helping me break out of that codependent role. Mm-hmm. And, I'm a pretty accomplished person when I walked into this marriage, but I didn't realize how much I was basing my self-worth on how the other person, how my husband was doing, how my kids were doing, how my family looked, all those, in a way we'd say kind of typical substance abuse areas. We want to make the family look good, but nobody knows on what's going on the inside. That was true for me. And I had to learn that you have to reach out and ask for help.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I just want to backtrack. That did not sound arrogant at all. In all honesty, I believe too many people do not do that. You need to praise yourself at times. It's good for your mental health, I believe.
Well, it's that positive self-talk. So if we have, it's like 400 conversations with ourselves per minute, who do you talk to yourself all day long? So maybe you're not getting positive self-talk, or maybe you're not getting positive talk from other people, but you can do it for yourself. And what does the Bible say? It says to take all thoughts captive, right? Mm-hmm. So if I'm feeding myself with negative thoughts of I'm not good enough, I can't plow, I can't get the kids up there, Rich, I would have been passed out in the snow at that point.
Right.
Just done.
Yeah, that truck would have been sliding backwards too.
And then we would have hit the neighbor's fence, and that would have been a whole lot of other issues. But I went, okay, here we are. Let's just gun it and go forward. And that's sometimes when I work with women, it's we can't change the past. Right. We can make amends. We can go back and say I'm sorry, but we can't change it. So what do we need to do to go forward? Yes, where are the lessons we need to take to go forward? Because if you stay stuck in what I call victimese, then nothing changes.
Yeah. Oh, victimese. I like that. Did you make that word up?
No, I've stolen it from a couple other people.
Oh, really? I've never heard it before. That's a first for me. I was going to suggest you put it on a shirt or something.
Well, but it's not something. It's not something you want to work with. When I'm in victimhood, then not only have I abandoned myself, but I've abandoned what my maker says about me. My maker says, hey, I knew you in your mother's womb. You are how I made you. Let me be there with you and tell you how loved, how cherished, how cared for you are, because isn't that part of what brings us into addiction in the first place? Is we don't feel, there's so much pain. We don't feel like we're worthy and we want to numb out.
Actually, with the addiction, because with the snow plowing and everything in the farm, you mentioned that your husband had left. This was before he went into recovery, right?
So we had a pretty dramatic full stop. Now, I had been reading The Purpose-Driven Life. I had been walking and praying every morning and saying, God, it's time. God, it's time. God, it's time. Now, I know that God hears my prayers, but I also know that he has his own timing, even though I was saying it's time. So we had a pretty dramatic stop. My husband had come home. We had gone to a Christmas party for his work. They had hired a van to bring everybody home. There had been excessive drinking that blew up over that night. It was the first time I reached out for help. But again, I am 22 miles outside of town. This was before we really had towers. My text did not get out till the next morning. So I didn't get help until the next morning. So it calmed down for a little bit. But at that point, my girlfriend who came to get the kids and I in the car called the police, and one of us was headed to jail. And so he did the valiant thing. He did that. And that was the night he got sober. As soon as he got out, he went to an AA meeting and he said, I am not leaving here without a sponsor. And I'm immediately going to do my 90 and 90. And he did. And I couldn't be prouder of him for saying, okay, I get it. I see it.
Right.
And I'm going to do it. Now, as I said, that doesn't mean everything is well, because this person who I dearly love is now very fragile. I'm really fragile. And the court, who was never really meant to deal with family issues, has taken over our lives.
Yeah.
And so why I was plowing on my own without any help is we had a full restraining order. We could barely text about kids, and we had supervised visitation. So it was a hard place to be. It was 5 days before Christmas. There was some miscommunication around Christmas, hurt feelings on everybody's side. And I've got 3 and 5-year-old little boys. So it's always one of the reasons I do this is not just for the women. It's for the innocents who they didn't ask to be born in my family. They didn't ask to be born here. God in his divine wisdom, I think, gives us the mothers and fathers that we need, but we're not always healthy and whole. We need to keep turning to the true father and say, ooh, screwed that one up. How do we head forward with this?
Now, how is he doing today? Not your son's, your husband.
He's doing well. He is running his own business. He is, he's made great strides on dealing with that. And in fact, he worked for a really large international company for a little while, and then decided he wanted to run his own business. And in doing that really what we found, and we interviewed some people on my own podcast, is the same drive that drives an addict to get what they need will drive an entrepreneur. So actually, addicts make excellent entrepreneurs because they have this innate drive that I'm going to complete this. I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to get where I'm going.
Yeah. Only difference is sometimes they don't realize what they drove for, I think.
Well,
I mean, in a way, or after they get it, they don't know what's going on.
Well, and even when you're working with entrepreneurs, it's not always clear what the next step is.
That's true. Yeah.
With the personality of both people, and when they're meshed in one, the personality of both people has this drive that says, I will figure it out. That is such a high skill. I was working with a family that their granddaughter was struggling, and she was an adult by this time. And one of the things that she was really good at was sales, because she could read people really well, and she could figure out what their needs were and help them get their needs met. So it's a really interesting flip that these skills can be turned into something that really works for you. It's coming back to your core identity. That's where I work with women, is who and whose you are. What is your core identity? Because if your core identity is worthlessness and I've never been good enough and I don't have enough and back into the victimese, that's not what we're designed for. And when the Father steps in and says, you are precious, you are cherished, you are loved, Let me show you all the things I have for you. Then you can take those skills that maybe you learned them for survival. Because when you think about why people choose addiction, often there's childhood trauma. Often they were responding rationally to an irrational situation. So when you learn them for survival, how can you take them and turn them to thrive? The skill itself, it's like money, right? Money is neither good nor evil. It's a tool. It's the love of money that becomes evil, that takes us down.
All right. So when your husband went into recovery, how long afterwards was it that you started coaching other women?
Oh, you're asking a good question. So I had been, by the time he went into recovery, I'd been in Al-Anon for 7 or 8 years. So I'd already been sponsored and I had some people I was sponsoring. So not a formal coaching situation, but I was in that relationship because that's encouraged. That's how you keep your program working, is you help people come in. Yeah. So I'd already been doing that, but I didn't really start coaching probably till about 5 years later. And then I went and got the training that I needed and the certification that I needed to do that. I was blogging. I was speaking to anybody who would hear me, and I was sponsoring people and I was talking about it in Bible studies in church and those types of things. But the more formal coaching didn't come along for a little while because you need some space. I mean, I was a mess. I was as big of a mess as he was. It took two to create this.
Now, you mentioned Al-Anon, that you were in Al-Anon. So are you in recovery yourself?
So Al-Anon is a group for friends and family of those who struggle with alcohol.
Okay.
So, and then I'm going to answer your question a little differently. Yes.
Okay.
Because I didn't marry my husband because I was well. Right? Okay. He was in active addiction when I married him, even though I didn't think he was. I didn't know enough. I also have, you could either term it relationship addiction, love addiction, those types of things, which let me tell you this crazy circle. So this is what codependency, love addiction looks like, is I need you to be okay so that I'm okay. So then as we get more intimate in our relationship, it is my job to take care of you. Hear that part. My job to take care of you so that you feel okay. Because if you don't feel okay, I don't feel okay. Let me extrapolate this a little further. God is not your savior. I'm your savior. I'm going to make it all right so that we can balance, which means I balance the checkbook. I make sure the kids are okay. I make sure we have a social life. I make sure you get to work. I make sure you're not using. I make sure all of this happens. It is more insidious because you can get rid of alcohol and drugs, right? It's really hard to get rid of other people.
Yeah.
So if I don't do all of those things, then I have failed you. I failed the relationship. I don't feel good. And I'm going to work even harder to make this happen. So when I say I'm just as sick as he was, I was trying to manage things that were never mine to manage.
Right. How did you overcome that?
So I had all those years in Al-Anon, and then I did a program with a therapist that was wounded by shame, healed by grace. So this is a John Van Vonderen. It's hard to get anymore, but it is priceless. Right. It's a biblical-based program, and not only does it talk about addiction and God's love for us, but it also talks about the thing that we don't think about often, which is addiction switching. So you may be healed from one set of addiction, but if you don't deal with the pain and what caused all of this and the trauma, then you're just going to move to something else. So as he describes it is so interesting. He said, the person may grow a prettier plant, a societally acceptable, prettier plant, become a workaholic, right? That we're going to accept. Or suddenly I'm at the gym every day of the week and I'm not knocking any of that. Or I'm at program. I'm at AA, Celebrate Recovery, Al-Anon, whatever, every day of the week. Well, that's a bridge. That's a bridge possibly. But they could also pick up another one that takes them to an even darker place because the trauma hasn't been dealt with, whatever that trauma is.
Okay.
And that's where here is where the family really plays the key role. The family, when the person who has been in addiction moves out of the inside of the circle, because they're in the inside of the circle because we're constantly orbiting around them. Is that okay? Are they making it? Do we need to pick up the pieces? So they move out, they take up their responsibilities. Now, probably somebody moves back in, a broken leg, a lost job, or whatever, but that's normal for people to move in and out of the circle. When the family goes, but we don't know how to handle you when you're outside of the circle. We liked you better when you were drinking because you were easier to deal with.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I've heard those statements. Or, hey, I don't want to give the finances over to you because I don't trust you and I don't think I'm ever going to trust you. And I don't want to walk this road with you. So that's where the family has to get well too. If the family does not move out of its position of we take care of whoever is struggling, and they need to let them fail. They need to set good and healthy boundaries, but they also need to look at how they've been contributing. You can't cause it. You can't cure it. You can't control it, but you are contributing to it. Are you contributing positive? Are you contributing negative? Because when you look at that person and you say, now we can't go out with these friends because they're drinkers and you're not a drinker anymore. And even though you say it's okay, it scares me because remember, I'm controlling everything. So we can't go out with these friends. So I have to give up these friends that I've loved and liked for years.
Wow.
And that's where, so what we know in the addiction field right now, what we know is if the family is willing to get well, not just a 1 week at recovery, not that, if the family is willing to change their patterns, then the person who has the struggle is a lot more likely to stay stable. But what you got to look at is the family system wasn't stable to start with. They wouldn't have put up with this if they were stable to start with. And they did for a long time.
Yeah, it's, and we've talked about that before. It's a lot of times when people are contributing in the wrong way, they think they're helping, but they're not. And that's a hard thing to I guess, hammer into their head.
Well, it's really hard because you look at the downslide of the consequences. Okay, if he doesn't get to work, then maybe the check doesn't come in and the mortgage doesn't get paid and I don't have some place to live. So folks who are trying to support this person will often downward spiral quicker than the person does, and they will try and shore everything up. Well, then you have an exhausted, often angry, very controlling witch of a person who, scripture says it is better to live in the corner of a rooftop than with a nagging wife. So this person has allowed themselves to fall into this deep hole. And that's where I help women say, okay, where can you begin to set the first boundary? Does that mean you go to bed on time so that you can get up in the morning and get where you need to be? Does that mean you say, okay, we're having dinner at X time. If you can't make it, we're still going to have dinner at this time. I'll leave a plate for you in the fridge, but I'm not changing the family routine to this craziness. And it's a matter of saying, sometimes we don't even know what's crazy. It's a matter of saying, my therapist asked me this. He said, if you could do this in a way that suits you and the boys for your best lives and your best schedules, what would that look like? And I'm like, I hadn't thought about that because I'm always trying to include him. I want their father there. I want all of this. I want this to be a family. I have this image,
Actually, when you guys were going through this, how were the boys? Because a lot of people don't realize, yes, it could be very hard on kids and to where they're dealing with it in their mind throughout the rest of their life.
Yes. So that's very true. At the specific time, I've got a 3 and a 5. The 5 is often saying, where's daddy? When is daddy coming home? What's going on with daddy? And what I tell parents is to be honest to the level of their understanding. Right?
Oh, yeah.
So sometimes I didn't know where daddy was. And that's an
Right.
acceptable answer, to say, I don't know. Or to say, hey, we're going to see him at church. You're going to spend time with daddy at church on Thursday and Friday night. To take them into not staying in the past, but take them into the next level. Now, my guys are now, one's almost 18 and one's 20. This is really about the first time that we have talked about actually what happened.
Okay.
One, because they weren't inquiring, and two, because of some things that happened in our lives. But we were bringing them along step by step in their teens and helping them move through this. In the beginning, they were, of course, at Al-Anon and AA with us. I mean, there's no reason for them not to be doing that. They've been in church their whole lives, all those types of things. I've had them read different things to have some understanding of what their background was, a little bit of therapy. You can offer therapy as they get into their teens, but you can't force it. So really what I found, and I want to give all moms hope, we hit a really hard point when my oldest turned 13. And it was directed towards me. And we had him in a little bit of therapy. This is really painful to say. The therapist said to me, she said, your household is not safe, emotionally safe for him to do his deep work in. And talk about a knife to the heart. I went, oh, there's some stuff we haven't cleaned up. She said, one of you needs to get into therapy with me. So I'm like,
oh,
okay,
wow.
Here I am.
You're listening to Conversations with Rich Bennett. We'll be right back. I want to take a moment to talk about something really exciting. See, we love partnering with reputable businesses, companies that are making a difference, providing top-notch services, and building trust in their communities. And if that sounds like you, I want to invite you to become a sponsor. Sponsoring the podcast and Harford County Living isn't just about advertising. It's about real connections. You'll get premium exposure across our podcast, websites, and social media, putting your brand in front of an engaged, loyal audience. And here's the best part. Right now, we have limited sponsorship spots available for the year. And if you pay annually, you'll get 25% off. You heard me right. 25% off. And you're going to love this even more. That rate is locked in for the lifetime of your sponsorship. So even if those levels go up 5-10 years from now, you're paying what you pay now. That's it. So if you're looking for a strategic way to grow your business and reach the right people, let's talk. Email me at richbennett@danben.com. That's DANBEN.com. And let's make 2025 an unforgettable year for your brand and into the future.
So because teenage years are hard anyway, there was a lot of stuff going on. My husband was out doing his business and gone a lot. That was really traumatizing for the boys. And so I went into therapy, and guess what? The whole household began to calm down. I changed how I was responding to people. I changed my anxiety level. I changed my connection with God. I depended more on what God was saying to me than trying to get that feedback from my three men. How am I getting the value? Right? So
you were listening to God a lot better.
Yes. So I really do see the wife as the heart of the house. And if her heart is in turmoil because she may not be in agreement with what's happening, she may be at a stage, and I was going into menopause. I mean, talk about a crazy time.
Yeah, that can be hard too. Yeah.
Talk about a crazy time for women. I mean, we can't ignore that. And I think we don't talk about it because it's kind of in that taboo area, but we can't ignore that when the hormones jump around and when all these things are happening, you can't ignore that piece to it. And then these beloved children were gaining more and more independence and looking more and more like men. So, when a child gets older and you look at them and they're in an adult body, but the brain is not there yet, something is wired in us that we have more expectations than we should have. So we needed to back down. So I went into EMDR therapy for about 2.5 years. That changed everything. That changed everything. That changed all of our relationships. And it allowed me to do, Mel Robbins has a very good secular book out now called Let Them. And she talks about people are going to do what they're going to do. And we need to get out of the way and let them. That doesn't mean not having boundaries. It means saying you are an autonomous God-created being and you have choices. I may not agree with your choices and maybe we can't come together with choices. So not only do you let them, but you say, let me. What are the choices I need to make? So for all those moms out there listening, maybe you can't get a child into therapy. Maybe you can't get a husband into therapy. Maybe you can't get somebody into a group. You go. You make the time. You do what you need to do to support yourself, because I'm going to tell you flat out, you are that valuable. You are that valuable to them. You are that valuable to God. And I want you to see that you are that valuable to yourself. God has not abandoned you. He has not walked away from you. And he wants you to see yourself as his precious child who is not just about serving other people, but you need to have a self yourself. It's because it's love your neighbor as yourself. How can you love your neighbor if you don't love yourself?
Thank you for saying that, because that's something I mentioned a lot. I've even asked people, and granted, I wasn't doing it, but I do it now. I mean, how many times do people even look in the mirror and tell, look at that person in the mirror and say that I love you. I love yourself, or you love yourself. A lot of people don't do that.
Because a lot of
which
people
I think
can't
is
do
a big problem today. Yes, I know. That's a whole
let me give you something
conversation.
Simple is if you can't do it, let God do it. You can stand in the mirror and say, I am loved by God. I am loved. Then when you can say, I love you in the mirror to you, it's exactly what God's saying to you. Exactly what God's saying to you. And that's where when you're seeking it from a resource, your people, instead of the source, you're always going to be disappointed. I mean, he tells us that over and over again. We see it scripturally that people fail each other on a regular basis. God's the only one that doesn't fail us. So if you're going to those resources going, I need, they're going to fill you for a little bit, but you're constantly going with your empty cup going, fill it.
Yeah. And if you're not doing it, I don't understand why. Because you do the coaching, you do the podcast, you don't have a book yet. Do you do speaking? And if you don't, why not?
So here's the promise I made to myself. I was an older mom when my kiddos were born. I wanted to be the one that raised them. I wanted my feet under the table for breakfast and my feet under the table for dinner. Somewhere in these last 5 years, I took a job that required me to travel quarterly. It was still too much. It was still too much. So speaking often requires the traveling and those types of things. It's coming. I'm graduating the second one. To my great pain, he's going to go off to college next, not this fall, but the following fall. So God is putting things in my path, but he's also He's also saying, not yet.
Right. Okay.
So yes, I think that will come. And the book is on my heart. It's just, the tools are getting better. Writing would be better if I could speak it rather than having to actually write it. So.
Wait a minute. So you actually have thought about writing a book?
Oh, yeah. So I've got...
Oh, I was joking about that. I didn't know that.
I've got a blog that's probably 10, 11 years old now. I haven't taken it down despite my oldest son going, Mom, you can't leave those pictures of me up there. I'm like, but you were so cute. I haven't taken that down. I've got, the other blog that I work, or the other website that I work off right now, and then the podcast. And what I'm finding is I just keep learning, and some things keep showing up, and I'm like, oh, I got to write that one down. But then I forget where I put it. I don't know about you, Rich, but I get to a certain age and I'm like, I forgot where I put all that stuff.
Yes, I'm that way too. Yeah, I got to always. And the funny thing is, I've never kept a journal by my bed. And I learned when I stopped watching all the negative stuff on TV, I started sleeping better. And, the funny thing is, I wake up in the middle of the night because I dream of a good idea. And I couldn't have had nothing to write it down. So I bought a journal, put it on my nightstand. You know how much stuff I have written in that journal so far? And it's been there for a couple months.
Oh, no.
Not one thing.
It's coming.
Oh, no, I keep having the ideas. It's just, I think it's just that when I actually get up in the morning and start working, I'm remembering them.
Yeah.
So I come downstairs and write it down.
There you go.
And it's right there. All right. So, Tanya, I love to ask my guests this. With your coaching, can you share one or two feel-good stories about somebody that you helped out?
Sure. Absolutely. So I had a young woman come to me. I will tell you from the beginning, her marriage was not salvaged, unfortunately. But she came to me and she was totally struggling with who she was, how she got validated, what was important. And she tried to work things out with her husband. What happened was he absolutely refused to stop using. And when you get a person who puts that curtain in front of themselves, you can't work with that.
Yeah.
So she did what was needful and necessary. They went ahead and divorced. And then she's like, I really don't know who I am. So we spent another year together.
Wow.
And she is now working for a company that she loves. She has started a Bible study. She has created a friend group. And she's even done so much forgiveness work that if her former husband, he had a medical emergency, she was able to be there for him, to take him back and forth to the doctor. She's able to, go ahead and say, there were some really good times, and I'm going to hold on to those, and I'm going to let go of the other ones. So that to me is a super success. It isn't exactly what she wanted, and God had other plans, but she's stepping out, being the woman that he created her to be, without that kind of infection and that anger and revenge and all those things in there. She's let all of that flow, and the forgiveness is holding true, and she's able to talk to other women about how they can come back into their own identity too through this Bible study she's running.
That is great. Actually, before I won't forget because I have it written down. Because you do coaching virtually as well. So with anybody anywhere, or is it just where you're
anybody anywhere? Unfortunately, I'm monolinguistic, so you do have to speak English. But other than that, it's anybody anywhere.
I never thought about that part. All right. So all right, two questions. Number one, tell everybody the websites, how they can get in touch with you, and the coaching that you offer, the different types of coaching you offer.
So it's TanyaGioia.com, TanyaGioia.com. That's the hard part. And I offer both a group coaching and an individual coaching. There's a course that comes with that. We've found that that's really productive. And I personally really like the group because the women support each other. Now, individuals, sometimes we break off into that if there are higher needs as far as that's concerned. So that is just an ongoing piece. And then I have some smaller courses that are self-directed on boundaries, on prayers for your husband, some smaller self-directed courses. And they're all over there. There's some freebies over there, Your Identity in Christ. All those other pieces are over there as well. I also have a podcast that's now called Faith Over Addiction, that I've been interviewing just some people. God really put it on my heart that I needed to move more towards people who were really talking about God and his healing. So that's where Faith Over Addiction really moved. It took a huge leap forward as far as that's concerned. And then you asked me a second part of the question and I forgot.
How they can get in touch with you.
Okay, so you can go to the website and do that. It has all the information. Click. I'd love to do a quick call with you, understand what's going on, see if we're a good fit. If we're not, I have tons of resources in the community that can head you towards that. I work mainly with women. I work only with women. I don't work with men, but I have other people who do that. And then there are a couple other groups that I can point you to. My personal experience has not been the heart-wrenching loss of a child. So I have some other people I can point you to for that. And I hope not to walk, God, if you're listening, I hope not to walk that one. So I have other folks who could do that as well.
All right. And you already mentioned the podcast, and I wanted to talk about that. I love talking to other podcasters because people should listen to your podcast. And I think you already answered this question, but what made you decide to start the podcast? And for those people that are thinking about starting a podcast, what's been the biggest struggle?
Tech is the biggest struggle.
Okay.
I remember I started my podcast. We took a break in 2020. Everybody's starting a podcast in 2020. God asked me to pause my podcast in 2020.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, really? I still remember walking the dogs and God and I are having this. I'm like, really? Now? Pause it now? Why now? So anyway,
he knew it was going from 700,000 podcasts to 7 million podcasts. That's why.
Well, it doesn't make sense to stop still, but someday when I get in front of the throne and I can ask the tons of questions I have, I'm going to say, why stop the podcast? What has happened now is there's so many other things that make this simpler. When I started, I was using like Apple's GarageBand. I was doing all my own editing. Thumbnails were kind of a thing, but not a super big thing. Getting on Apple was a struggle. So the tech was a lot of struggle. Now they have so many platforms out there that you can record straight to your phone, get it out there, put it out there. You can drop it. What is it? There's one that really does that quickly, and I can't think. Podbean apparently is one of the easiest ones to use. Now I've used many different things. I'm using Hello Audio now, also really simple, and private podcasts have become a thing. So
I just got an email from them.
They're fabulous. I really like them.
Are they?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but anyway, I would encourage anybody to start their podcast, because that's one of the things as women that we lose pretty quickly, sometimes just in a normal family, is our voice. So if you have got something you want to talk about, and we've seen people talk about all kinds of things, go ahead, use your voice. Put it out there. Get excited about it. It doesn't have to be perfect. And especially if you turn it over to God, you're like, okay, God, what do I need to be doing now? He has walked me through several twists and turns of we're turning it over here, we're turning it over there. And that's been fabulous. So my thought process has been, if one person, if that one, who is lost from the 99 hears this and says, okay, I either want to find out more, or I want to check in with my local church again, or whatever, then it's been worth it. It's been worth every bit of it. And this is the fun part. What you're doing right now, Rich, this is the fun part, is the interviewing stuff. But the tech has gotten so much simpler since you and I started that it can be put out really quickly. And if you don't like that, do the mini podcast on Instagram. I think they have, upped it to like 3 or 4 minutes that you can do the short on.
Really?
Do that. Do whatever it is that gets your voice out there. Because here's the other thing. Even though my oldest doesn't like having his picture out there, I have more of a historical record than I ever would have had I not done that blog that turned into a podcast that just, it blossomed. It's a family history piece of telling the story of who we are.
Actually, have you had either of your sons on your podcast at all?
So my youngest started a podcast of his own.
Oh, come on.
So cute. He has since quit, but I have all the episodes from it, and it's just adorable. And then I don't think I've had him. Our podcast has always been really adult. So my husband and I did it together for a while. And then when he got on the road, we stopped doing it together. We were on his podcast. I can't remember if he's been on ours, but he was in 4th and 5th grade. They're just now hitting the point where some of the seriousness of this, and I want parents to be real clear. Bring them along. There's lots of good information out there. We were privileged to go to the Betty Ford Children's Program for who are dealing with addiction. They have an online now. We happen to be in a state that has one, but they have an online now. They have funding if you want to bring your family in. It changed our lives, and it really changed how we thought about addiction. So I'm sorry I didn't bring that in earlier, but look that up. The Betty Ford Children's Program for families with addiction. You can look that up online. There's some wonderful people there. They just loved on us. And this is where I think families get stuck. It's not shame-based. You're going to be there with other families who are working to recreate a life and to heal their children. Because as you started to say earlier, my kiddos did come out with some trauma from that. There's things that they're still going to work out, and we need to be holding space for them as they begin to work that out.
Yeah. So because I'm looking at the time too, before I get to my last question, is there anything you would like to add?
I think on the subject of children is there's already so much happening for them that is often in families. We have a friend who they were taking dad to weekend jail, and he told the kids in the back seat, we don't tell people that this is happening because this is not really happening. So oftentimes in families, what you saw, you're told you didn't see. And so then you begin not to trust yourself. I mean, we're kind of back to the self-worth piece there. So be age appropriate, honest with your kids. And if you don't know how to do that, get in some groups like Thrive Family Resources, get materials there's a book called Beamer the Light Bulb Boy, because oftentimes children don't understand feelings because they've been told they don't really feel what they feel. And so now they don't know. So Beamer is like yellow for happy and green for jealous and red for angry. And we had to do this for my youngest. I put up plates and he could tell me what feeling he was feeling. And I can pretty much tell you that came out of the trauma of his early life when he didn't have words to verbalize. So we've had to work through that differently than we did with the oldest one, who had some more words to verbalize, but again, still really young. And then it is extremely important to bring them along on the journey. If you're in a Celebrate Recovery, they have a children's program. They have a children's program and a teen program. Wonderful program, which is a 12-step recovery program that centers on Christ himself. So bring them along. Make sure they get what they need. Secrets build secrets, and secrets make us sick. So age appropriate, but bring them along. So we did all those things for our kids. You're triggered. It's been such a long time. They were still reading the Beamers. They still occasionally read the Beamer books. They were still reading the Beamer books late into probably 12, 13, 14 years old. And they're explaining things to themselves, which is the best way to learn. So we did Betty Ford. We did Passport to Purity. We did, they were in our Celebrate Recovery children's program. I had them read, there's a good book by Mo Isom called Jesus, Sex, and the Conversation the Church Forgot. So talking to this about young men. And it's a woman, actually. Mo's a woman. So
Oh.
she's writing this from that perspective, but talking about it in a way that's very biblical. So bring them along on the journey age appropriately and answer their questions.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely, without a doubt. It's you got to be honest with your kids, but like you said, to the age level.
Yes.
As well.
Because you don't want to make them little psychiatrists. They're not your best friend. I'm sorry. They're not your best friend. There comes a time later when they're adults, when the friendship part happens. But during that time, they're your children. So age appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing that both my husband and I did for ourselves was we sunk into our respective groups. My husband can never be my girlfriend. He can be my friend.
Right.
He can be the person that I turn to, but he can't be my girlfriend. So I still need time with that. I don't want to go shoot guns with him. So he needs friends to go shoot guns with. So that sinking into that and finding that community so you're not dependent totally on the family and certainly not dependent on your kids to be your social and your support system, because that's not appropriate either.
You don't want to shoot guns with him, but you'll teach him how to plow, won't you?
He already knew how to plow. Well, I mean, we dirt bike together. We ski, we ride horses, we do all those other things. But guns are just not my thing. And for all those women who love guns and hunt, go do it. It's just not me.
Yeah. I don't blame you. All right. So for my last question, and it's probably not what you think I was going to ask. What is one practical step that you encourage women to take when they feel overwhelmed by their loved one's addiction?
So reach out. Find a group. If it's an online group and you don't feel comfortable showing your face because you can't bear to walk through the door, or you live in a small town like we do, there's so many resources out there. Find somebody that you can at least listen in, that you're not alone. So there's extraordinary resources out there. Celebrate Recovery has groups. Al-Anon has groups. You know, the biggest thing, if you are unsafe, get safe. Yeah. Figure out how to do that. But if we're talking about a woman who is not unsafe, is raising her family, then get to where people are telling stories to where you go, I connect with that, and listen to their wisdom. That's how we get brought up in groups. Now, if you're ready to step forward, there's a myriad of coaches. Listen to what they're saying. Listen to their thoughts. And then the pivotal book on boundaries is called Boundaries by John Townsend, and go and get that. It's a Christian perspective on boundaries. Boundaries are there to help us be the people we're designed to be, not to harm or not to put other people out. In fact, boundaries are not just a good thing, they're a God thing. And if you want to go back and read Genesis, God said, hey, I gave you a boundary. You crossed the boundary, so we're going to have to limit your access. I'm not walking away from you, but if you don't have enough responsibility for the access I've given you, we're going to have to go through some more training to work through that. So grab that. Lisa TerKeurst also has some really great books on it. If you're too worried about what's going to happen, do it in a way that you can be quiet about it, but do it for you. You're not going to change him or her or whoever that is.
Right. Well, Tanya, I want to thank you so much. Those of you listening, again, go to Tanya, that's TANYA, Gioia, GIOIA.com. And make sure you check out her podcast too, Faith Over Addiction podcast.
Absolutely.
Tanya, I want to thank you, and God bless. I know we're going to be talking again, because I'm going to mention something to you real quick when we finish. I would love for you to come back on for that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. This has been fun.
Thank you for listening to Conversations with Rich Bennett. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and learned something from it as I did. If you'd like to hear more conversations like this, be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you have a moment, I'd love it if you could leave a review. It helps us reach more listeners and share more incredible stories. Don't forget to connect with us on social media or visit our website at conversationswithrichbennett.com for updates, giveaways, and more. Until next time, take care, be kind, and keep the conversations going. You know, it takes a lot to put a podcast together, and my sponsors help out a lot, but I also have some supporters that actually help me when it comes to the editing software, the hosting, and so forth. There's a lot that goes into putting this together. So I want to thank them. And if you can, please visit their websites, visit their businesses, support them however you can. So please visit the following: Real Life Prosthetics, cutting edge solutions, restoring ability since 2001. Go to reallifeprosthetics.com. Full Circle Boards. Nobody does charcuterie like Full Circle Boards. Visit them at fullcircleboards.com. Sincerely Sawyer Photography. Live in the moment. They'll capture it. Visit them at sincerelysawyer.com.